Hi, I'm Mario Evon, and you're listening to Talk Truth, a weekly edutainment podcast discussing the things that most people are afraid to, but from a Jamaican perspective. From relationships, sex and sexuality, to the ins and outs of entrepreneurship, in this space we speak about almost anything with the intention to inspire, educate, entertain, and create a fair and balanced space where your truth shall become your power and set you free. Yo, family, deep voice things. Welcome to episode number 29 of Talk Truth. It's good to be back with my Talk Truthers. And today's episode is actually an important one, a heavier one. And the disclaimer I give to you for this episode is that it's such a sensitive topic that my wonderful guest, we have a lot of giggles, but the giggles and the laughs, I think, punctuate a topic that is so serious for some people, for most of us, that without those giggles and laughs, we wouldn't have been able to get through it without bawling. So I ask you to be patient with this episode because there are a lot of gems in this episode through Anika's experience, and I really implore you to listen through the seemingly fun parts, but all of it really is quite serious. And on today's episode, Anika was kind enough to share with us her journey losing her parents. She lost both parents close to each other, and was kind enough to share that experience. And I know many of you may have parents who you have lost, one or both. Some parents you have no relationship, you don't even know. Some of you are very close to your parents. So I know that this episode may or may not touch people in different ways because it runs the gamut. But we were all brought here by two humans, and at some point we may experience that loss. So really check out this one, and this one means a lot to me because just check it out. See you on the other side.
Oof, I head did so big.
No. You know, sometimes some big-head people come on this podcast. I'm just doing watch nobody listen after today.
Do you do these outtakes?
And I might keep them. I do keep them actually. Yeah, sometimes it depends on what they are. Anika, are you ready for this?
I guess so. Let me take out my gum.
Welcome to the next episode of Talk Truth. You know, every time I say that, I hope people are actually saying it at home, but I don't know, so I'm gonna do a survey on that. I have with me such a wonderful person who I've just only met probably under 2 years, maybe even under a year, possibly. And today we're gonna actually talk about something really important and heavier than some previous episodes. So welcome to Talk Truth, and introduce yourself to our listeners.
Hi all, I'm Anika Repole Wilson, and I'm good friends with Mario, even though we've only met
Maybe
two years?
Under a year? Under 2 years?
Like
it feels
years.
like 20, like you've known me forever. And well, we're going to talk about, actually, I don't think we have an official title, but I'll say we'll talk about losing parents. And Anika was kind enough to actually share her experience, and we have no idea where this conversation is going, which is the good and bad part.
Have tissue.
Just tissue in case this becomes like an Oprah episode.
Oh God.
But before we go into that, I just want Anika to tell us a little bit about what she does. Like what do you do in life?
Okay, so I am a brand and digital marketing coach, an entrepreneur, run a business called Chic Digital, and I'm a mom and a stepmom, so that has to somewhat be differentiated depending on the audience that's listening. Right. But regardless, it's a mother, you know. And yeah, I guess that would categorize things. And it's funny because before I lost my parents, I would have naturally just identified myself as being a daughter as well.
A daughter would be in that list.
Yeah, so that
things.
just, I didn't mention I'm a wife too.
You are, I know, right? and big up her husband because he actually is the audio engineer today of sorts. He created our very quiet space that we're in. So big up to
I feel like everybody can hear me breathing.
to Mark. I know it's one of those intense. These microphones, like everything. They might hear you when you swallow. And I just want to add at this point that I met Anika too, because we had worked at the same place for a while, and she identified some greatness in me. And, you know, we ended up working together where she was actually coaching me on my marketing strategy. And I learned a whole lot. And I'm still actually going to be coming back to her for more coaching.
Nice.
But as of right now, a lot of the things that we have done, even in this podcast, some of them were ideas from Anika. You may have heard me big her up 1 or 2 times. Like truth bombs was her suggestion, you know.
Ooh.
I haven't dropped one in a while. So, you know, lots of wonderful marketing tips. So if you guys ever need someone to coach you with your brand, I would recommend her highly.
Thank you, Mario. I'd recommend me highly too.
All right, so where do we start with this conversation? Where do you want to start? Tell me about the wonderful people who are your parents. It's a good start. Let us honor them in identifying who they are and what they meant to you.
Okay, and we're willing to take breaks and we can edit. Thankfully, this is not live television. So
Exactly.
So I would say that there's a generation of people who may not be familiar with my parents.
Right.
But to many, they were stalwarts in their own fields. So mom was a big educator, and she worked in not just in education, but also in terms of helping individuals through different processes and regulatory processes for education. Mm-hmm. So apart from her starting as a teacher and moving all the way through administration and even representing the country for UNESCO repeatedly, she was big in education.
Got involved in the other elements of it.
Yeah, so that's Mills Repole. And then my dad, Herbert Denny Repole, he was a pretty big architect. So
they both had D names, Daisy and Denny?
Delia and Denny.
That's kind of cool.
A flower,
Delia,
regardless. Yeah.
right.
Yeah. So, I mean, they were very talented individuals in their own rights. Dad was an incredible poet. He was the artsy one. Very good with words. Mommy was more on a pragmatic side and more very caring and from the heart. Both of them were. So I have that I've taken that element of always giving of myself from them.
Let me tell you can't come into this house and not be offered that drink, you know. I mean, so you just know that whoever
or food
or alcohol sometimes. But you know, whoever raised her definitely taught her these wonderful things. All right, so that is mommy and daddy. And how many of you are there in terms of siblings?
So I have so my dad was married before. Mm-hmm. So I have a brother and a sister from that previous marriage.
Right.
And then there's my brother, and I have a little brother as well.
All right.
Yeah.
So 4 of you. Well, you would make 5.
Mm-hmm.
Right. Okay, wonderful. So then, so what was life like growing up with them? So you guys grew up in this family house that we're in now?
Yeah. So, we moved. So I grew up primarily here. But we had lived in Drumbler for quite some time.
Right.
And they had lived even in Atlanta for some time before I was born. But yeah, so we primarily lived in this house. Mm-hmm. Yeah, and Daddy built this house. He designed this house as well.
I think maybe a good question is continue to journey with me from childhood with your parents. Because I mean,
feel like therapy.
I know,
Mario.
right? No, it's just that the losing of the parents is further down.
Right.
So you know you don't really want to.
And I realize I'm always very nervous. Like I can hear the shaking in my breathing.
Right.
Like I can hear it.
So like this is where I do a therapy thing and say, just deep breaths.
Not Lamaze. I do that as well. I make jokes when I'm uncomfortable.
And I still love the fact that you are willing to have this conversation. So continue the journey from childhood. So and take me along your journey with your parents and what it was like just being around them.
So I would say that I grew apart from my dad, and that would have been a couple of things. You know, he he was an incredible father, very good provider, but he was always busy.
Right.
So his work took him quite a bit out of the country and away from home. So as much as I have very good memories with Dad, that there was a time frame where I became a bit resentful,
right,
of not having him around.
So it was like an absence of closeness made you become a little resentful.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. So there are a few daddy issues.
Yeah.
But those I would actually say, and this is interesting, and it has come up before in different conversations where I can say I have more or less resolved those daddy issues since his passing.
Right.
Which is
interesting, right?
Yeah,
it's interesting because you would think that in his passing, maybe you'd still hang on to them and cling on to them and have to battle with them.
Yeah, I didn't have a choice but to figure out a way to let them go. And this is going to sound bizarre, but I feel closer to him now than I did when he was here.
I don't think it's bizarre either. You know? I think I've heard other people actually, I think The Rock actually recently expressed this to Oprah in their podcast because his dad died recently, and they had a few tussles, you know.
Yeah.
And he said that he felt a little bit more at peace. After. I
would say so as well, and I would say what put a strain on the relationship too was that he was diagnosed with Parkinson's. Mm-hmm. So, and that diagnosis came when I was probably around 15, 16. So that would have been a pivotal time in my personal development.
You're like a mid-teen.
Yeah. And I realized, and I've said it before as well, I felt like I was losing him little by little.
To the illness first. Yeah. Right. Mm-hmm. And all right, so that's that. What about your relationship with Mom?
So let me try not get emotional.
And you're allowed to talk truth. We have tissue here. And I'm a doctor. That changes nothing.
No. Mom was, I would say over time we became best friends. So we had a very close relationship, and I say that with pride that she was, and she did also say that I was her best friend.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. So I'm going to try. Mario. Whew.
You know what, folks? I'm going to try not to edit this episode too much. You know why?
Wait, one.
It's like we can curse and talk truth. It's because, it's funny. I wanted to talk to Anika about marketing, but
I went and volunteered.
Anika suggested this topic, and I thought this is a really important topic because before you even lose parents, if you're close enough to your family, that is, and you have parents who are around you, the stage before that is they'll get older. Mm-hmm. They'll get older and they may become ill if things, progress in a traditional way. And all of that is very difficult to deal with. Mm-hmm. So you are now doing big woman things. You're married, you're a mother. And all right, so take me now to which one of your parents passed first?
Dad.
What was...
The funny thing is, so Mom was diagnosed with pancreatic cancer in December 2009.
Okay.
So she was diagnosed in 2009 of pancreatic cancer. And anybody who knows about pancreatic cancer, it's insane. Like the survival rate is tiny. So that scared the hell out of us. Daddy was pretty well progressed in his Parkinson's
at that time,
and Mom had started and pulling me along in the process, started preparing us for her passing first.
Right.
So it was about setting up things for Daddy for long-term care and making sure that everything would be okay.
This was once she had been diagnosed?
Once she was diagnosed. Right. Like she just
aggressively started the plan for it. Yeah.
Mind you, she was also working on herself and, getting her treatments and so forth. And she had this amazing positive outlook. But she knew the
outcome.
The outcome.
Typically, right?
The typical outcome.
Mm-hmm.
So we did not anticipate that Daddy would have passed first. And Mom survived considerably long with pancreatic cancer,
Right.
and had a very good quality of life for a good amount of time.
Wonderful. Yeah.
Because she was diagnosed December 2009, but she didn't pass away until January 2013.
Wow.
So she got a long time.
So, and was it that the treatment had been somewhat effective in reducing the tumor load?
Well, we had there were those, obviously. Like, she did her treatment, she did a surgery, she removed the pancreas, she removed parts of the liver, she removed parts of the intestines, because it had already spread.
Right?
We had actually gone to Trinidad for that surgery, and I remember being so scared because in the back of my head, I was almost preparing and going with her to come back with her in a box.
Right. Every time you went into a major procedure or something, you were wondering if this was going to be.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So when I came back, because I left her in Trinidad when she had come out of ICU and so forth, and I had a cousin come and stay with her. And I left going back to my work, but I knew that it was so interesting because on that flight back, and I'm remembering it now, and I'm trying to just keep it together. But on that flight back, I had never seen the island in coming back in that direction.
So in Jamaica, you mean?
Jamaica.
Coming back, right?
So when we were flying back, the pilot took away that I just never saw it before, and it was beautiful.
Yeah.
And I thought how lucky I was that I did not have mom. But the thing is, it doesn't. Whenever people ask me about my parents, and they'll typically say, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
I'm like, no, don't feel sorry, because it's it makes me relive moments. You know? So I don't.
You don't want
I'm
anybody.
bawling, but I feel good.
Yeah.
I feel happy to remember them. You know.
It's
just I hate when people hear me cry.
But you know what you've emphasized, and what you remind us is that even though a lot of people say it gets better, it's still difficult, and that's the message, that it's never really
better. It does
it
not.
get better though?
No. And what I was saying to you was, in that moment when I was coming back and seeing how beautiful the island was, and realizing how lucky I was that she was not in the luggage compartment, being carried in a casket. It was moving to know that I had a little bit more time with her.
Right. So she had completed the surgery in Trinidad, and you were coming back alone.
I was coming back alone.
But she was recovering.
She was recovering.
All right. And that would have been like in 2010, because since we're
that was 2010.
So she had done that. Yeah, that's early out.
Yeah. So it was pretty early, and they were very aggressive with how they treated her. But because we kind of jumped a second, like, to answer your question, if it gets easier, no, it doesn't get easier. You just learn how to live differently.
You cope differently.
Yeah, it's there's a quote, and I can't remember who said it, but it was I think, was it Abraham Lincoln? Or someone said, my mother taught me everything except how to live without her. So it's literally a new way of living an existence, especially when you're close to a parent.
I'll find that quote. We'll find it. I'll put it in the show notes.
Yeah.
Wow. You know why I probably was saying it gets easier? One day I asked my mom if she misses her parents, and I think she said she does. But I think she was saying that, her parents would have died many years ago. I think she said there comes a point where you just know you won't get them back. Yeah. And I think somewhere in kind of coming to that resolve, I don't know, it maybe not easier, but it's different. Yeah. So so she probably wouldn't cry anymore at this stage of the game. But I don't know, it's different.
I think there's still there might be still moments when she would cry.
Maybe if you were to set it up a certain way, right? I believe you.
But at the same time, even after grieving, there's a second part of grieving where you have to come to that realization, where my knee-jerk response when something either amazing or terrible happens isn't to pick up the phone and call my mother or to make sure my father is okay. It's when that happens, it hit me over. It was almost like another dimension of grief.
Wow, yeah, because immediately after you're still kind of feeling that they're physically present.
Exactly. So it's almost, and I mean, there are different stages of grief you go
exactly.
through. I mean,
this is a Kubler-Ross.
Exactly.
I know about Kubler-Ross.
I did this as my sixth form SBA death. So I've always had a very interesting relationship with it, and it has never really scared me. So I knew the processes.
The stages, anger.
Yeah.
I believe it's the first one.
Yeah, or is it denial?
Denial,
and then anger.
Then
Then you have bargaining, and I think then there's depression, and then you have acceptance.
Right.
Yeah. And I mean, you go through that in any stage of grief, whether even be with breaking up in a relationship.
You do go through all of the phases.
Stages.
You do go through all the stages,
grief.
and then you still, even when you think it's over, sometimes there are things that come and box you down
Exactly.
and remind you that you're not fully over it.
Exactly.
All right. So what year did your father pass, and what was his cause of death?
It would have been complications related to the Parkinson's.
Right.
So he passed away in 2011, November 1st, 2011, like a few days before his birthday.
Yeah.
So mommy
was a Scorpio.
Yeah.
Like you.
And my mother
and
were all
Scorpios.
Wow.
Whatever the sound a scorpion makes. I could hear the pincers. The pincers go. We just made a scorpion song, guys.
Oh. All
right. So he passed in 2011. You said
in 2011,
November 1st. Mm-hmm.
And I think, I mean, I've always dealt with death, with different family members, and I was always very involved, and I made sure of it, like trying to be involved in going to funeral homes and so forth. But because mommy was sick, and mind you, she was up and about, but I didn't want her dealing with the stress. So I took this on.
She was functional, but you stepped up.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. And that would have been a pivotal moment in me being an adult and me being a daughter.
How old were you at that time?
Oh God, would I have to calculate? Do I have to say
You
that?
don't have to say that, no matter. Okay. I just wanted to know if you were still
I was
a teenager.
In mid-20s. I was
20s.
mid-20s,
Mm-hmm.
I think.
Mm-hmm.
And then... So dad passed away a few days before his birthday, and I went to register because we had very close birthdays. I actually went to register his death on my birthday. Mm-hmm. And I remember how emotional that was. Yeah. But I was very, I guess I would say, distant from it. I was literally just going through the processes,
Kind of just functioning.
Yeah. And just making sure everything was dealt with and very business focused where his passing was concerned, and making sure that everything was put together. I mean, I had cried, but I didn't fully cry until the funeral. Mm-hmm. Yeah. But
I understand that's how it often is too, because the knee-jerk response is to get stuff done.
Right.
And I am the child, and I want to step up, and I'm going to be responsible.
I have to deal with this.
Right.
Mommy not going to deal with this. I have to make sure everything is okay. And then, of course, there can be issues within a family. But so it was just about making sure that everything just got dealt with, and we were staying focused.
And keeping everybody as comfortable as possible, I guess.
Yeah.
And I like they said it was a pivotal moment in your adulthood, because I think that happens many times in your adult life. Mm-hmm. When things happen, and death is one of them. All right, so tell me a little bit about, between dad passing in 2011 and mom passing in 2013.
Yeah.
What was that journey like? No, so one parent is no longer around, and how does life change after that?
Well, so dad, it was interesting because of how focused we were. Like I had mentioned before, we were preparing for mom to go first. Like we thought daddy would live forever.
So you didn't expect it at the time.
It was surprising in some ways. At the same time, there was a sense of, because he was ailing in a different way, and he was losing aspects of himself, and he would have very, very good days. So that's another scary element of aging parents in terms of the dementia, because the dementia set in with the Parkinson's.
Yeah, it's a whole
that was
rough,
heavy.
Yeah, man.
Like
forgetting names and stuff.
He never forgot names per se, but he would, when you'd wake him up out of a sleep, he would get very confused, very aggressive. He had even maybe said some really mean things.
Yeah, right. Which were coming from a
so it
from
was
a genuine place.
But that was hard for me to deal with,
especially if you don't understand it.
Yeah. And I did not want to understand it, and I did not want to deal with it, and I was in my anger phase while he was alive. And that's something that I have had to come to accept.
You were still upset with him, so like while he's having an illness that's causing him to respond in an inappropriate way, you're literally like, why are you talking to me like
exactly
this?
So I was grieving from before he passed. I went through my denial, and I was in anger for years, and that's sad, but it's just
what
the
it
truth.
is.
Truth.
It's your reality.
So when he passed away, it was no shit. Should I have been more sensitive, spent more time with him, or should I have been more sensitive? Should I have done this? Should I have done that? Like, and that was a hard aspect for me to deal with, and also a hard aspect for my mom to deal with as well. But
so you mean for her in his loss, or in her observing you dealing with it?
For her loss as well.
Okay, right.
Because being a caregiver, that's one thing that people I don't know if people openly speak about it. It's stressful as hell.
Bad.
And it makes you feel less compassion in some ways.
Even for the ones who aren't family members, even if you bring in people from outside, it's hard. It's a difficult job, yeah.
So it was interesting to be in that space.
Yeah.
And to realize, okay, no, I'm in that space again for mommy, and I made sure that I did it right.
You felt better prepared in a weird way? As weird as a question as that is?
Yes, I did. I was also preparing myself over time, and she would get really good results and so forth, but it was always there. It was always there. I remember someone saying to me this was a very stupid comment coming from them.
With less tact, yeah.
I don't know if it would be tact. I don't think this was tact. But she literally said it. I don't remember if it was even after or right before mommy passed away, but something like, she was trying to be nice.
That's usually how.
But she basically said that I'm going to become an orphan, or that I am an orphan. Like, you see, I can't even remember when it did happen because the whole vex it didn't make me. Right? So it was when I heard that, and I don't even remember if it was after, but it was the most depressing thing that I could have ever heard.
Yeah, that falls into the categories of people talking to single older people about whether they're gonna have kids.
Or when is the next one?
All of the insensitivities that we tend to not realize, and usually, sadly, the people who say these things actually have good intentions, but some of them are just very oblivious.
Sorry. I'm not sorry. Not sorry. Hope you hear this. Should not have said that.
You might have to have a conversation.
Not go call her. Sorry.
Oh wow. All right. So you had a piece of you that was still concerned about her passing. So really, what these imminent illnesses do, it kind of makes the inevitability a little bit closer to your face.
It was real.
Because prior to that, I think a part of us kind of feel like they'll be around.
Yeah.
You have this kind of false reality that people in general in life will be around.
I always told myself, so I went through different phases as well, because I remember saying to myself, I want her to be around so I can tell her, or I remember saying for dad, like, I want him to be there for my wedding, which he was. He wasn't in the best state to walk me down the aisle, but he was able to give me away, you know?
So you had both parents.
So I had both of them for that. But then for mom, because she got diagnosed literally like the month after my wedding. Daddy passed away about 2 years after.
Yeah.
So with mom, no, it was like I want to be able for her to see my children.
Right.
And or to play with my children.
Right.
And then that shifted when I realized I'm running out of time. So I want to be able to tell her that I'm at least pregnant.
Yeah.
And or no, it was before that, it was even just to hold the baby. Then that shifted again, time running out. I want to be able to tell her I'm pregnant. That ran out as well. So it was just to be able to at least tell her that, okay, we're going to be trying.
Yeah.
So it was, those are the realizations that you end up going through. And that was my process of also coming to terms with the loss that I would have to go through.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I appreciate you sharing that, because I think that is really what goes through our minds, the things that we'd want to share with them, because they are our friends at the end of the day. And then you think, okay, I'm not pregnant yet, so this means I can't tell her that. Yeah.
So you run through those timelines, or you have certain milestones in your head that you expect that they're going to be there for.
Right.
But when you realize that they're not going to be, because you have the beauty of coming to acceptance with time.
Yeah.
So as much as illness is not a good thing, it gives you that it gives you time. It gives you time to be able to come to terms and to grieve in a way as well.
An interesting perspective, but true, especially if it's not sudden. I'll throw that in.
With the medical
because sometimes it's sudden.
Yeah.
And that's a whole different
thing. Especially with her PanCan, we thought that would have been pretty quick too.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Fast forward to 2013 now. So and leading up to your mom's passing, I know how cancer can be. It can usually, be, the last stages can be a little rough. What were her final days like?
She was in pretty good spirits.
Yeah, you said she had a good quality of life, eh?
She had a pretty good quality of life, but it was also just her outlook.
Just an optimist, positive. Mm-hmm.
It got pretty fast and hard towards the end. Yeah. So I guess that is where the aggressiveness of pancreatic cancer, how it just hit us.
Yeah.
So I would say if we're looking at time, maybe in December she started going downhill. Mm-hmm. And we realized that something is not going very well.
Right.
And we had gone for, we would go to her appointments with her oncologist, and in this last appointment, and I'm still very vexed about it, we were basically told, how we were told was what I was pissed off about, that there was nothing else that could be done. And we were kind of like, okay. And I expect that that's something that they have to go through all the time. Mm-hmm. But there was, considering that the relationship that she and my mother had, right, and they were pretty close, and they got very close. And I think the doctor, in her own right, she had to grieve too.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
So that's something I've come to terms with.
Yeah, we grieve.
Yes.
Doctors have to grieve. Yes. Even.
But we just didn't appreciate how she had dealt with us at that moment. So we actually took her last CAT scan or whatever to another doctor who was very sweet with us. And he went through and he Skyped with my brother, and he basically told us, okay, this is it.
So the answers weren't different, but the delivery was different.
It was just the delivery. Mm-hmm. And that note to doctors.
Be careful of your delivery. Delivery is terribly important.
Yeah.
Terribly important. Yeah.
I mean, you're a doctor, so I can't say what I want to really do to our care, but I didn't really vex.
Well, yeah.
Anyway, so when we found out that things were going down, she herself went into almost a shell for a while. So she just went into her bedroom. She went through her process.
Yeah, we have to remember the patient is going through a process too.
Yeah. So she became very distant, very quiet, and just didn't want to do anything. And her appetite started going down, and make a little ganja tea for her, and it increased the appetite, and she would eat. And then she got very chipper after a while. We brought people around, and we knew what was happening. I even told my brother, I was like, you need to come soon, because, and he's like, how long do you think? This is not me with medical, but I said, I think you maybe have 2 weeks. I don't know where I got that.
But that was your estimation.
But I was right.
And you're pretty accurate, right? Mm-hmm.
So when I had we brought friends around and just, raise our spirits, and wanted them to be able to say their goodbyes as well. And she ended up coming down with sepsis. So
which is infection in the blood, guys.
Yeah. So the doctor, that same sweet doctor, he had come and he had admitted her to Andrews. And said, okay, let's get her on some antibiotics. Let's make her comfortable. The aim was to just treat her in the hospital. get her comfortable, at least get her back home so she could pass away at home and have family around and so forth. That didn't go as planned.
Yeah.
But she was okay in the hospital. I would bring her ice cream. I'd paint her nails. I'd spend time. I got some time off from work.
Yeah.
Told them, listen, I'm going to need time. And they understood, thankfully.
Yeah.
So the plan was that I was going to be off for maybe a few weeks.
Yeah.
And the night before, or rather the morning of the day she was supposed to come home, was when she passed away in the hospital.
Right.
Yeah. That was an experience, to say the least.
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't know how much detail you want me to go into that.
I mean, this is your personal experience now, right? The finality threw you into a whirlwind.
Yeah. So I had gotten a nurse to be there with her. This one in particular, she was a medical nurse. You said medical.
A registered nurse.
Registered nurse,
right?
sorry.
Not a practical nurse. I got you to differentiate. Yeah.
So this one was she was a registered nurse. But I had another one who would be there, so I could at least run errands because, mind you, I'm still setting up for her to come home. And just think about that for a second. I'm literally preparing the home for my mom to come home and pass away at home.
Not knowing that she may not come home, right?
Right. So I'm still running errands, but I needed just somebody to be there, So, and of course, I need some sleep.
Yes, so, that would be good.
Yeah. So this nurse, I remember her calling me. I had just left the hospital, maybe about an hour before, and she calls me, and I hear my mother in the background. It's something I've worked hard to get out of my brain, and I've successfully done so. So now it's more of a memory of a situation versus the sound.
Right. But
I heard my mother in the background yelling because she was in pain.
Right.
And I remember calling in a panic and saying, get the doctors, get somebody to help her, give her something. And found out that they hadn't given her the medication or whatever. I don't know if you want to edit this part. But anyway, the point of all of this was when I started getting ready, because the nurse says, you need to come now. I said, okay, I'm getting ready. So I put on my clothes and I was like, oh shit, this is it. I just felt it. I felt it. And I was putting on my clothes and I was racing, and I remember praying, and I was like, God, give me wings, God, give me wings. I'll bust through every red light. Like, I'm like, I have to get there, have to be there, just to be there for her. The nurse called me back again, and I didn't hear mommy. It was silent in the background. And she said, where are you? I said, I'm just down the road, I'm coming. So she said, okay. So I got there, and I walked through the ward and got to the door. And when I got to the door, they were giving her CPR. So they had a crash cart in there, like the doctor was on top of her, like it was a scene.
Yeah.
And I collapsed at the doorway. And I don't remember the sounds. I remember a nurse having the nerve to tell me to shush. I still have her up. I'll mark her face. Anyway.
I'm not editing any of these things. You know why?
Because people need to be more sensitive.
And you know what? This is not an uncommon experience for a lot of people I'm not even going to target Jamaica, in healthcare. These things happen in different parts of the world. Yeah. Maybe here more often than it should. And people need to know that this is how the non-medical person experiences it.
Yeah.
And that a lot of times medical people can sometimes be less sensitive because they see it a lot and they're in work mode and they kind of just they're not really in touch.
I honestly, I can't tell if I was yelling. Yeah. I can't tell if I was screaming. I don't
you collapsed, know. But you're probably doing something.
I don't know. I just know that I fell to the ground in a heap and I was crying. That's all I remember.
Yeah.
And I remember my nurse, and thank God she was there. She grabbed me up and she pulled me and she said, she can still hear you. She can still hear you. Come and talk to her. So she pulls me over to her, and they're still giving her CPR. They're still aggressive with her. And I'm like, I remember basically telling her, don't go. And let me try and contain myself. And then something clicked in my head, and I stopped, and I realized I was being selfish in that moment.
Right.
Whew. And I stopped and I said,
You wanted that for you.
it was selfish.
It was for you, yeah.
And I said, I stopped and I said, no, it's okay, mommy. You can go.
Yeah.
And at that moment, the doctors saw, and I guess it was their cue, and they stopped. And they just quietly started leaving the room, you know? But I was there with her. I closed her eyes.
Yeah.
I heard the breath leave her lungs. And it startled me the first time because there were 3 of them. And it's something that's one thing I hope I never forget.
Yeah.
But, whew.
How important were those final moments to you? Like, do you think it would have been different if you
I don't think
if
I
you
would
weren't
ever.
there?
I don't think I would ever forgive myself if I didn't hear it.
Right. So it was actually better for you to be there.
I had to be there. I'm happy I was not there when she was in pain,
Yeah.
but I'm happy I was there to give her my farewell.
In the final moments.
And I was able to tell her that, I'll take care of everybody. I'll look out for everyone. You don't have to worry. I'll take care of them. And the first breath I heard leave, it scared the hell out of me because I was like, oh, she's. And the nurse was like, no, she's going. Just stay with her.
Yeah.
And then I was just with her. I just held her and heard 2 more. And then there was just silence. And at some point in those moments, I remember just gently taking my fingers and closing her eyes. And I would not want to change it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow.
Oy,
Lad.
Where's the liquor?
Let me. We did have a discussion about smoking before this, but we thought maybe that could have gone another direction.
Yeah, no, I don't think
so
that would
we're
have been
kind
a
of
good
glad
idea.
we didn't bring that
Smoking
into the situation.
weed, be specific.
That's right, smoking marijuana. Wow.
It's heavy, sorry.
It's heavy, no.
Whew.
And you know what? This is the first talk truth of this heaviness of this. But you know what? I am so appreciative. I'm less so grateful. After this, you guys won't get to see this, but I'm going to give her a big hug and all these things. So Anika, in the passing of your parents, would you say that it changed any of your behaviors?
Well, apart from valuing time with family and friends more, and that's also something sometimes I take for granted too still, I have developed a slight obsession with constantly striving for, and it has become a compulsion of sorts. And I was trying to explain this to somebody else recently, where I've been literally, it's a compulsion of trying to constantly make them proud. So it's like if I achieve something, I have to do something else. I have to do something else. I have to do something else.
Do you actively think about whether they would approve of this thing?
Yes.
You do? All right.
Yes.
Is it always a bad thing though? Because in a way, isn't that kind of what good parenting is?
It's good, but somebody said this to me and it made me cry. But she said to me that hopefully at some point I will be doing it not with the desire to make them proud,
but to make you proud,
but to be doing it for me.
Yeah, you want to divorce their expectation or what their potential response would have been from the action.
And whenever I say that, it's like I want to make sure that people don't think that they were like overbearing or
no, not at
it's
all.
just that it's almost like if I'm not doing something, it's a way of me hearing their voice.
And you also know how they operated as professionals and as individuals and as humans, and you want
big shoes to fill.
Big shoes to fill. Yeah.
But at the same time, it's a way for me to hear their voice. It's a way for me to get validation. So if I do something that would make them proud, it's like, okay.
It's almost like you're speaking to them.
Yeah, and somebody will say it to me, and I'm like, oh God, thank you. You know,
your mom and dad would be proud.
Exactly. Yeah.
That's an interesting thing. I had never thought of it, but it makes perfect sense though.
Yeah.
How would you say their passings have affected your being a mother? Being a mother.
So it was incredibly difficult, because I had conversations with mom before, about motherhood and so forth, but I didn't have the detailed conversations, the simple ones like, how should I deal with a colicky baby? Like
and it was
stuff like that.
Because there wasn't an overlap.
No.
Right.
So it was, I found out I was pregnant maybe a couple weeks after we buried her.
Yeah.
So it was hard. And I started looking, and I say this story when I talk about Island Mom.
Yeah.
So I started looking for her voice in different people and in different situations. I was trying to find mentors. I was trying to find somebody who could almost surrogate for me.
Right.
And while I was pregnant and while Seth was a baby, and I kept on looking and joining mom groups and stuff.
Replacement mom, yeah.
And it was I couldn't find her. And then I started realizing that when I was giving advice to other people, I started hearing her voice in mine. And I was like, oh my God, she's here, but she's in me.
She's in you, right?
So I ended up deciding, or this is an interesting story. I had one of the most vivid dreams I've ever had with Mommy when Seth was a baby.
Mm-hmm.
And I woke up with the idea of Island Mom. And so I literally registered domain name, started building website, everything the same day. So I started a community for moms.
Yeah.
But that was basically the thing. I was just looking for her voice. I just couldn't find it, but it was in me.
And then Island Mom was kind of your way of getting that voice out to the public.
Yeah, and getting it out and sharing those sentiments of who she was with other people and other moms, and sharing her with other people as well.
It's interesting also our desire to create legacy for them, even though they have created their own. I think we kind of want to also create legacy for them.
Somebody said to me, and I do remember I was having a little bit of anxiety about something, and someone said to me, you're struggling with the fact that people have entered your, it was a dream I had. So I have very vivid dreams, Mario.
Can I tell you?
And I had a dream where you might have been in it, where I had greeted my parents at a gate and brought them into, it looked like a labyrinth. And I'm carrying them around, and there are people in this labyrinth who they didn't know. So I'm introducing them to people like you.
Right.
I'm introducing them to other friends who I've met since they passed.
Yeah.
And I carried them into a room which was kind of like my office, and I'm showing them I'm so proud, and I'm showing them what's happening in my office, and look, Mom, look at this, Daddy, everything. I'm proud. And I remember only one person looked up and saw them, and I was actually pissed off. I was like, why the hell aren't y'all saying hello?
Right.
And when I woke up, I was upset. Like, how dare no one see my parents? And when I was talking to Mark about it, he said, well, the thing is that what he thought, or his analysis, was that you were introducing them to all the people who they never met. And there's an entire section of people in your life who will never meet them.
Right.
So it's about that legacy that you are trying to create for them, even through their, like, you want to have other people know them, you know?
Right.
So that's an interesting element as well, where the grief is concerned. Yeah.
Tell me about the healing. Both parents have been gone. So we're under a decade. Mom is 2013. That's 7 years. Yeah. Dad is 2011. My memory not bad. That's 9 years. 7 and 9 years. So both under a decade. It's 2020. Still difficult, as you say. Doesn't get better. But tell us about where you are now and what has the healing process been like.
It has. I mean, as much as I'm a puddle right now, I function pretty well.
She does, I swear to you.
I'm a normal functioning human being, just letting y'all know. But the healing has taken time, and I think in many ways it was good that I kind of started going through the grieving while they were here.
Yeah.
I compare grief to a wave or to surfing, because once in a while a wave will come and lick you over.
Yeah.
But the aim is to at least learn how to either swim or to surf or to ride a wave, just like depression. It's for me, it's one and the same almost.
Yeah.
So there are moments where something will come up, especially like milestones, like Christmases used to be very hard.
Yeah.
Her birthday was very hard. Her memorials, Daddy's memorial, our birthdays were hard. But it's gotten, I don't want to say easier, it's gotten it's gotten to a different space where it's no longer a process of going through like the angle of mine. You're still angry with some things at the hospital.
Yeah.
But there are elements where I feel less angry and more appreciative. I'm more appreciative of that time that I had with her, of the times that I had with him. But the healing, it takes time. I remember hearing, and I don't remember if this was before they passed or after, but supposedly they say there's a 5-year and a 10-year.
Mm-hmm.
So there's for people who deal with sudden or traumatic death,
right.
It can take up to 10 years for someone to actually go through the grieving process. Any other death, it will usually take about 5 years,
right,
on a realistic time frame. Because people go through, and they go. If you've ever seen that meme, it's like all over the place.
Maze,
there's no linear space,
right.
or a linear
there's
journey.
No straight path.
It's all over the
up
place.
and down and all around. Yeah.
So I would say it's I'm getting there still with time.
I mean, I don't know how many friends you have who have lost parents, but my friend recently went through this, and you'd be amazed at how similar.
Yeah.
How similar a lot. And this is you many years after.
Uh-huh.
And his is right very fresh. And I thought to myself, I hear a lot of the same emotions.
Mm-hmm.
Just kind of wanting to be there in the final moments. Remembering everything happening in the final moments. A bit of resentment towards the hospital staff for the things that they could have done better, or that seemed like they could have been done differently. A lot of it is similar. So have you any company? You have other people who you've had this kind of conversation with?
Yeah, a few. And I have many conversations as well with older folks too. Yeah. I think they see I don't know, maybe there's a maturity in the grief that I've gone through, having lost them so close together, because it was almost one and a year. Like it wasn't even 2 years. It wasn't 2 years. It was like one year and a couple months. Mm-hmm. So it was pretty close. I have one of my best friends. She lost her mom, and she was overseas when it was happening. Yeah. So she called me when she found out what was happening, and her dad was at the hospital, and she asked me to go there. So there have been many moments where I've gone and helped in the process for other friends, and I was there and I held her mom's hand and did what I could for her that I thought she would have wanted if she was there. So I tried to represent her in those moments.
I want to ask you for 2 sets of advice. The first set of advice would be for someone like myself who is fortunate to still have both parents alive and functional. What would you say to people who have parents around?
Well, for one, you want to get the business stuff out of the way, and I say
that's
that
like a whole nother podcast.
That's a whole nother.
Yeah, I didn't want to go there because I know that it's a lot, but mention a bit.
I was hoping we would have gone there.
Okay, no, let's go there
because this was so emotional.
I know. No, we can touch it a little bit.
I was okay to talk to the practical side,
Right, but not the emotional side. We can touch it a little bit. All right, get the business out of the way. What kind of stuff we're talking about now?
So for one, especially if you have particular parents, you want to make sure that you have some access to their finances.
Yes.
You want to be able to know that there is something there to take care of the final arrangements.
Yes.
So you have to get up in them business, quite frankly. I actually did an article on this in terms of coping with loss and the stuff that you need to look out for.
And this was in it, is it still around?
I could find it for you. But you have to take care of the business. So get on their bank accounts or get access or have them have you as a signatory, something. Because when the time happens, or whether it be sudden or whether it be with illness, if you don't have access to the finances, you're going to be in trouble.
Difficult.
Hopefully they have some sort of policy in place as well. But you need to take care of the business, because if you have to worry about the money on top of everything else, it's another level of stress. So take care of the business. I would say also you need to start having some very frank conversations with them. They would be also coming to terms with their own stage of life.
But we need information.
But you need information.
My mom and I planned her funeral service. And I don't think it's morbid, but I have it typed out in a Google document.
It was beautiful.
It's beautiful. She said don't go over an hour. She had very specific things. She had songs, everything.
Yeah.
So that's done.
I mean, my mom had gotten him to suggest certain things.
Yeah.
So in terms of having conversations with him,
Burial
and
or
she'd make
cremation.
notes, and
Yeah.
you have to ask these questions.
Burial or
because
cremation, where
trust
you want
me,
to be buried. Yeah.
when after it happens,
You're like,
and then there are
what?
debates between family members
As
based
to
on
what?
their personal
Right.
preferences.
Don't send them one Midores.
Okay, you want
Make we
to
bury them in a country where them born.
No. So make sure you have those very frank conversations. Mommy had she had a whole little folder
Yeah.
that had different programs, funeral programs, and she had literally selected her hymns
Yeah,
and
man.
everything.
Yeah,
So
man.
it made life easy. It was just, I literally
You
just
have to
typed out
execute.
everything.
Yes, just execute this. Yeah.
And so you have to have those conversations.
And even though I haven't gone through it, I know the process can be tricky. And guys, think about it on many levels too, not just bank accounts, stocks, shares. There's death certificate. There's a bag of things happen, and choose the executors carefully too.
Oh,
I mean,
Lord.
not that the children will choose the executor, but the executors will be the one who
Mm-hmm.
have to ensure the things in the will are happening. I got
Most
to be an executor
definitely.
recently, and it was not bad because a law firm helped. But had it not been for that law firm, you'd have to have a JP on hand. There's so many steps.
There's so many different things that are involved. It's
expensive.
insane. It's insane.
Yeah.
So you want to make sure you have the executors in place, and that you know who the
Know who
executors
they
are.
Yeah.
One other thing that I think is very helpful is to, if you have a good lawyer,
Mm-hmm.
that they have some sort of power of attorney
Yes.
available. Nothing that would be enacted unless obviously that the parent is incapacitated, but having the ability for you to take that power of attorney document to the bank to get stuff sorted
Yeah. In the event.
is
In the event, right?
yeah.
Somebody can trust, a lawyer that you
Yeah.
have a good relationship
Yeah,
with.
exactly.
All right, so the business. Start out the business.
So
That's
start
one
out the
tip.
business. I would have to also say that you need to cherish the moments that you have with them. It boils down to the little things. Like
Yeah.
people always think about, and I always think about this in terms of how I raise my son and big stepdaughter, is that it's not the big things that you remember. It's the little things. So it's not the big trips. It's not the big parties. It's not those things. It's the way my mother used to rub her feet together when she watched television or when she ate ice cream.
Yeah, just random.
It's those
that thing
little things
that you remember, or the
that
jokes
you
that they crack, or the way how they do
Exactly.
certain things.
the way my father used to laugh. Like those are the things that I remember, and those are the things that I go to when I need the comfort.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So it's to cherish those moments and make as many of them as you can.
Second phase of advice for persons who are similar to you, who have lost one or both parents, what you have to say to them?
I would say be gentle with yourself. Do not let anybody rush you in this process of grief. As you heard from my
Your experience.
blubbering, it's continuous, and it's there's no time limit on it. There's no time frame on it. Take your time, pace yourself, and also look for the moments that you shared with them.
Yeah.
Take them as make them be your fuel to keep you going. I would like to say that therapy helps too.
Let's not forget that.
Meditation helped for me considerably.
What kind of meditation are we talking about?
I'm talking about some deep meditation.
Yeah, like listening to songs. Oh, yeah, what form of meditation are we talking? Like waking up early morning?
I did deep meditation and even some amount of regression.
Yeah.
Which helped me to heal and to resolve issues with my dad.
Yeah.
So having a good therapist to help you through, especially if you're losing a parent, whatever the relationship was. I was blessed to have really a fairly good relationship with my dad and a beautiful relationship with my mother. For people who have a rough relationship, regardless, the grief is still fucked up.
Right.
So if you are not able to heal in that, and you're dealing with the heaviness of that plus the grief, it's
a lot.
It's a clusterfuck.
Yeah.
So having a good therapist who can help you through that process, or talking to somebody, I think is essential, just for you. Resolve those issues for you. You're not doing it for them. they're gone.
Yeah.
You have to resolve it for you. You're still here.
Guys, I'm not asking Anika any more questions. Is there anything else is there anything else that you would like to add? Because I'm happy with this conversation.
I'm wiping my nose. One second.
Guys, Anika is not going to be your therapist, but
No.
and I really would prefer you reach out to her for marketing purposes. But how can people find you?
Well, you can find me on Instagram, Business Chic CEO, and I mean, if you want a couple words of advice, sure.
DM her gently.
You can DM me gently.
If you were moved by this conversation. But
and I have a podcast too.
Yeah, but plug the podcast now.
Plug the podcast. Listen out or look out for While We Were High. So it's a little bit of cannabis involved.
What's the premise of that podcast?
So it's all about bringing cannabis into different types of conversations, removing stereotypes, and yes, I smoke cannabis. So
this is why she chose While We Were High.
While We Were High. So
it's pretty cool.
Yeah, it's a cool podcast. We'll have some good episodes dropping shortly.
Guys, check out While We Were High, Business Chic on Instagram.
Business Chic CEO.
Business Chic CEO on Instagram. And we just want to thank Anika for being willing to be this open. I'm going to edit little parts, but I promise that I'm going to keep it as authentic as it really was, because I think that's where all the beauty is in it.
I'm so happy y'all can't see my nose not right now.
Anika, thank you so much for being on Talk Truth.
Thank you.
You just listened to episode number 29 of Talk Truth. And once again, I thank Anika Repole Wilson for just being brave enough to come and share what she went through with all of my listeners. And I definitely took a lot away from it in terms of all the important things that need to be sorted out, but most importantly, the joy of just appreciating the moments and spending time with each other, because sometimes the little things are the biggest things. So for those of you who still have your parents around like I do, love them and cherish them. And for those of you who have lost parents, continue to heal, continue to grow, and continue to remember the beautiful things about them that actually create their legacy. Don't forget to like, subscribe, follow, share, comment, rate, review this podcast. And you can follow us on social media at talk.truthja, and follow me also on Instagram at Mario Evon. Our email address is talktruthja@gmail.com. So if you have any comments on this episode or you want to share your experiences, please let me know, and I can definitely speak a little about it in the next episode before we kick it off. Thank you again for listening to Talk Truth, a place where your truth shall become your power and set you free. Thanks again for sticking around another week, guys. Until next week. Bye.